Good afternoon, good evening. What's going on? What's going on? Thank you for tuning in again. Appreciate your time and your attention because that's two things you can't get back. So thank you. And also, everyone that's watched the videos in the past, thank you for your feedback. I greatly appreciate it. The plan is to keep coming with these type of subject matters. So hit the subscribe button and the like button, and let's get to it. So this video, I wanted to discuss gun control and black people because gun control laws in the history of America has been linked to racism and has been implemented in response to just restricting black people from owning guns. And this goes back to the 1600s and slavery. So anytime you see gun control in the media, this is something to pay attention to because typically gun control in America, whenever blacks have attempted to be free or to bear arms, you'll see an increase talks and restrictions about gun control in the media and in the news. So one example of that, one of the major examples actually, is the Black Panther Party. It was largely due to the Black Panther Party why you pretty much don't see a lot of open carry around the country. The Black Panthers, they were challenging these laws out there in California because, they felt they had a need to protect themselves. They were going to, government buildings with firearms out in the open, standing in front of the courthouse and all of these buildings, and they're all black. This scared legislators and this, put fear in white people. So when this was going on, at the time, the governor of California, because this was out there in Oakland, the governor of California was Ronald Reagan. So these legislators and white people in general were scared of this. So they passed on June 8th, which was yesterday, is pretty much the anniversary. It is June 8th, 1967. The California Assembly passed what's called the Mulford Act. And the Mulford Act basically it just restricted people from carrying openly these firearms. And that was in response to these Black Panthers carrying these guns out in the open. So this was completely racist because prior to that, it was a non-issue. It was no problem, and carrying out in the open didn't seem to make national headlines. As soon as the Black Panthers did it, all of a sudden you have this legislation, all of a sudden it's shut down, and gun laws have not been the same since. So that's just to show that anytime you hear, like you do now, gun control, this is a response to blacks owning guns. Now we see Biden and we see actors like Matthew McConaughey, guilt tripping people into their guns and all of these mass shootings taking place. But it's something to note. Is that partly because black people are buying more guns now than ever before? I seen one study where it said that one association reported that there was an uptick, 58% increase in gun sales were by black people, which was the most of any ethnicity. So you have blacks buying guns pretty much more than anybody else right now. And all of a sudden now you have all of these mass shootings and you have a big outcry for gun control. So is there a parallel between these mass shootings and the increase of black gun ownership? Now, here's why I say that. There's two reasons. Obviously, the first reason that we're speaking about is America's history with guns. So that's something to take note of because there's close to 300 mass shootings that took place in 2022. And we're almost halfway through the year. But yeah, you only see a few mass shootings, right? Now, there's been a lot that we've seen in the last 2 months, maybe in the double digits, but there's close to 300. So why are these handpicked to make national headlines? Buffalo shooting, Texas shooting. Why are only a certain amount only handpicked to be broadcasted and beat us in the head constantly if there's close to 300 nationwide? Here's the second reason. The second reason is this country has a history of trained killers, right? It's said that the assassinations of Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, it is said that these assassinations were carried out by what's called Manchurian candidates, which there's two movies about it. They're both called Manchurian Candidate. The original was done in 1963, the same year Kennedy got killed, and that was with Frank Sinatra, and then the remake with Denzel Washington. Now, Manchurian Candidates, real briefly, these are just, all of this came out of the Korean War, and I think around the 50s, in which they took these soldiers and they traumatized them. They put them under all of these circumstances in a controlled environment that shocked their brain and traumatized it. And when you traumatize the brain, it kind of defragments. And when it defragments, the individuals that's putting these people under these conditions, they can map your brain out like a grid. And each part of your brain, they could put specific commands in the brain to carry out certain functions based upon certain commands. So let's say, like in the movie, you see a deck of cards, like a two of heart. When the person that's been put under this trauma looks at that two of heart, whatever the command was that was put under that traumatized state, when they see this trigger, like the two of hearts, for example, they will go out and carry whatever it was they was instructed to carry at the time they seen this. And then this, the activation is cut off based upon a command or some other kind of symbol. This is what's going on when you see these mass shootings, right? Because if there's close to 300, why only certain ones killed? I mean, reported. And there's certain indicators that this is the case. Typically, the so-called shooter will kill themselves, right? When they're caught, they would look drugged up, like not knowing where they're at. A lot of them would say, I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't do any of this. Similar to Lee Harvey Oswald, right? Who killed Kennedy, allegedly, right? Patsy, but yet they found him in a movie theater. Who does that? Just like the subway shooting, in which case the guy was found wandering and they caught him outside of a McDonald's. Who does a train shooting, right? And then goes to McDonald's and then calls on himself to get caught. So when you see these things aren't new. So I just brought that up to give some context. So when you see these things in the media, there's two things you need to ask. Is this a response to blacks buying guns? So the more blacks buy guns, the more you will see these mass shootings, the more you will see these people cry and guilt trip you to restrict guns. And second, are these things organic? Or is it a lone wolf crazy person that just snapped and woke up, or that was mentally unstable and then all of a sudden did these things? Or are they trained killers, Manchurian candidates, that were trained to do this? And I implore everyone to look into what's called the Tavistock Institute. This institute is pretty much designed to socially engineer people. And part of this social engineering involves these elite serial killers, which I am referring to, which is also another book called Elite Serial Killers and the Assassination of MLK, RFK, and JFK, and Lincoln. So this is something to look into. So that's why I wanted to do this video, to show that gun control follows black people. Anytime you see gun restrictions, think racism, think black people on the rise of carrying guns. So with that, I'm going to end this video just to give some food for thought. Peace.